In July 1981, Nova Welsh, a 24-year-old mother of two, disappeared in Birmingham. 3 weeks later, people finally found out what happened to her. They found her dead body, which had started to decay, inside a storage cabinet in her own house. Detectives launched an inquiry, but it took 36 years for them to make progress. Who was Nova's killer and why did they wish to kill her if they were always unaware of them? Hi and welcome back to our channel. If you are new here, please consider subscribing, as it helps us motivate to create more intriguing content for you. Let's have a look at the cold case solved after 36 years by chewing gum. Birmingham will be the location of our case today. It is an English metropolis in the West Midlands metropolitan area with a population of more than 1 million. It is the second largest city in the United Kingdom, being sometimes referred to as the City of 1,000 Trades because it was once the world's first manufacturing town. In addition to its history in manufacturing, Birmingham is well known for its roots in the food and beverage industry, iconic rock music, and booming nightlife. In 1957, Nova was born in Jamaica. She was not an only child. She had a sister named Valerie. Nova grew up to be a carefree and happy youngster, and everyone in the neighborhood loved her. The closest friend of Nova, Lorna Edmond, described Nova as a nice lady who was always happy and smiling. Lorna Welsh, Nova's mother, decided to go to the UK when Nova was 10 years old in search of better possibilities. It was a challenging choice because she had to leave behind the people and environment they had grown accustomed to. She was adamant about leaving the country, nevertheless, since she wanted to provide her girls with the best life possible. Soon after reaching her decision, Lorna and her daughters departed for the UK in order to start again. Despite the fact that life in the UK was very different from what they were used to, the family eventually adapted and did so effectively. Nova met and fell in love with Osmond Bell, a young man who was also her age, around the time she turned 16. Both of them shortly started having romances. A few months later, Nova made her intention to leave home public. Maybe she was just so in love, maybe she just wanted her independence. She told her mother that she and Osmond had decided to begin living together. Later relocated and moved in with Osmond. 2 years later, Nova and Osmond had their first child. It was a boy, and they gave him the name Jonathan. 4 years later, they welcomed their second son, Lee. Nova was a caring mother to her little sons and treated them with love. To provide for themselves and their children, the couple obtained separate employment. Osmond worked as a builder, and Nova cleaned occasionally. However, swiftly everything seemed to be happening. Nothing would remain the same. Eventually, the relationship between Nova and Osmond began to deteriorate. The initial chemistry that had existed between them slowly disappeared. This leads to more frequent disputes between the couple. The neighbors at the couple's apartment in the Ladywood neighborhood could frequently hear their noisy disputes. During their occasionally heated disagreements, Osmond hit her, leaving her with bruises. As her relationship deteriorated day by day, Nova confided in her younger sister Valerie as well as other close friends about what she was going through. She ultimately made the choice to try love again with someone else. She acknowledged that she did not care about her relationship with Osmond. Osmond had ended things, but she was not quite ready to give up her newfound happiness. Nova first met Wayne Newby in May 1981, and the two finally got together. Wayne occasionally visited her at her home as their connection grew. This disturbed Osmond, and it gave him another reason to dispute with Nova. In June 1981, Nova's stepsister Sonia paid her a quick visit. During this time, Sonia witnessed one of their arguments and witnessed how heated it could become. On that particular day, Sonia was in the living room when she heard a scream coming from the kitchen. It was obviously Nova's voice, so she hurried to the kitchen to investigate what was happening. The image alarmed her. Nova was lying on the ground and Osmond was standing irately over her, his hands in a dishcloth. Sonia made it clear that she would call the police as soon as possible. Osmond made an effort to talk her out of it. When police officials later arrived at the house and questioned what had happened, Nova was the one who clarified what had happened. She told them about the fight she and Osmond had and how she wanted him out of the house. She never told the cops that the real reason she left the previous night and Osmond was not happy about it was the real reason behind their disagreement. When she got back from her outing, he confronted her, and things got worse until he grabbed her by the neck and tried to choke her. Officers went to Osmond's location to speak with him after Nova finished. He packed his belongings and left the house without a word. From that moment on, Nova sensed a sense of serenity and knew that things would get less stressful. With Osmond gone, she had more time to spend with her beau, Wayne. There was no longer any worry about having to deal with a furious Osmond after returning from a late-night outing. Overall, she was content and had more opportunities to laugh. Nova would eventually experience short-lived contentment, though. She had previously planned a night out dancing with Wayne and a couple of her pals. Because of this, she did not want to leave her two sons alone at home. She also believed that giving them control would be a great chance for them to get to know their father. She took the boys to Osmond's house in her car before going to the club to meet Wayne. She enjoyed herself immensely, dancing till she was exhausted, and having Wayne by her side brought back memories of her teenage love life. She decided to leave the club when it had already grown dark. She bid goodbye to Wayne and their other friends and headed for her apartment. After that, none of them would ever again see her alive. On the morning of July 25, 1981, Nova's neighbors named Carmen and Wendell Turner, who lived in the apartment below her, were awakened by a loud noise. They could hear an argument coming from Nova's apartment above them, which they had heard many times before. This time, they only heard Nova sobbing. On the evening of the Nova's family day, another neighbor observed Nova and later stated to the police that she seemed visibly upset about something. Nearly 7 hours later, at 12:30 a.m., Carmen and Wendell heard a loud boom coming from above. They pondered what or who could have made such a noise in the middle of the night when there was a second bang. One of the noises they heard sounded like someone kicking a door. Carmen and Wendell listened carefully, but there were no more sounds. They weren't bothered by it and eventually fell asleep. It took them a while to really think about the sounds they had heard. On July 27, 1981, folks in Birmingham went about their daily routines. However, Nova skipped work both that day and the following day. At the time, nobody saw her and no one knew where she was. They had anticipated Nova eventually traveling to Miami with her two children. Lorna, Nova's mother, and Valerie, her sister, had already moved permanently from the UK to Miami. They attempted to get in touch with Nova when they got to Miami but were unable. This frightened them. Nova's closest friend, Valerie Welsh, indicated that they had been trying to get in touch with Nova to confirm their safe arrival, but they had never gotten a response. Lorna was among the first to notice she had vanished. Lorna recognized that her friend's evasive phone behavior and extended absence were out of the ordinary for her. However, she was certain that everything was unfolding for a reason. She debated it for a moment before deciding to go meet Nova to figure out what was going on. She discovered Nova's apartment door locked when she got there, and no matter how loudly she knocked or yelled Nova's name, no one came to answer. She found everything to be very strange and wondered if her acquaintance had fled the country covertly. However, something else caught her attention and made her realize that not everything was as it seemed. Some of the clothes Nova had washed were hanging on the line. It was typical of Nova to leave her clothes out in the open after they had dried, as Lorna was well aware. As a last-ditch effort to assuage her concerns, she texted Osmond to ask if he had seen Nova. But he assured her that he had not and that he was with both of their children. Using this information, Lorna went to the police station and reported her friend missing. Police officers immediately began looking for her. They contacted her closest pals, but none of them had seen her recently. Osmond was also approached and asked when he last saw her and why he did not report her missing right away. Osmond answered that he thought she had either left with her new boyfriend or taken a trip to America with her family. On August 12, 1981, Lorna discovered a note in her mailbox, 3 days after she had reported Nova stolen. She at first thought it was from a relative. After breaking the seal and reading the contents, she realized her error. According to the letter, the author's boyfriend saw Nova fighting with a man she had been out with moments before she vanished. The letter claims that the man grabbed Nova and struck her. Lorna was puzzled. She had no idea who had written the letter. The author had wanted to remain nameless. But from what she had read, she could determine that the person was a woman. Immediately after writing the letter, Lorna went to the police. Their focus moved to Wayne after reading the letter's contents because he was the person Nova had been seeing before she disappeared. But when asked, Wayne strongly stated that he didn't know where Nova was or where she had gone. On August 18, 1981. Nova's neighbor called the cops about a bad smell that was coming from the whole house. No one was sure what the smell was, but it was very bad and made everyone uncomfortable. When the cops got to the scene, they found that the smell was strongest upstairs in Nova's apartment. As soon as they got there and saw that the door was locked, they broke it down. The cops held their hands up to their noses and grimaced as they looked for the source of the smell, which was getting stronger as they got closer to the house. The dust was all over the furniture, and the house was a mess. Also, there were cobwebs on the roof, which showed that the house had been empty for a while. The apartment had steps, and there was a closet under them. The smell was especially strong in one part of the house, which caught the officers' attention. Strangely, someone had used a chewing gum stick to fix the broken lock on the cupboard door. When the police finally got the door open, they found the body of the woman they were looking for inside. She was wearing a nightgown and had a blanket and some papers wrapped around her. The cops could not hide how horrified they were by what they saw. While everyone was looking for Nova, she was actually falling apart in her own home. After calling an ambulance, Nova's body was taken from the scene and taken away for an autopsy. The cops took the gum they found on the cabinet door and kept it as proof. Word quickly spread like flames through the neighborhood where Nova had died. She also called her family in Miami to let them know what had happened. They were so sad that they cried for days. The results of the autopsy on Nova's body showed that she had died because of pressure on the neck. Detectives started their investigation right away to find out what happened to Nova. The list said that Osmond was the main candidate. Detectives held him because they thought he was up to no good. He was questioned several times during the 4 days he spent in jail. Even so, the agents did not find out anything useful about him. He was also asked if he knew anything about the strange letter that Lorna Nova's friend had gotten at one point. He told them that he did not know about the letter. He was able to leave the station because he was no longer needed there. After this, detectives kept looking into Nova's death and even asked the public for help, but no one gave them any information, so they closed the case. Nova was quickly put to rest, but her family still felt sad about her death even though life went on. They thought about who killed her for a long time. Over time, the area of forensic science changed and became more complicated. Complex DNA methods that were impossible when Nova died are now possible because of advances in technology. In 2014, police decided to look into the case again. This time, they looked at the chewing gum that had been used to close the cabinet where Nova's body was found. Because the gum had been kept for so long, detectives knew that it would contain the DNA of whoever had used it to hold the cabinet door in place. They believed that the person responsible for the noise was likely the one who had killed Nova. A test on the gum turned up DNA. Investigators say that when they looked into it more, they found that it was a match for Osmond. DNA tests were done on things besides just the gum. Osmond's DNA was also found on the seal of a letter Luna got from him in 1981. This letter was also brought to the lab to be tested. From this, there was only one thing to say. He wrote the letter to draw attention away from himself. The strong evidence showed that the detectives had caught Osmond. He was arrested right away and blamed for killing Nova. After his arrest, when he was asked more questions, Osmond claimed that he was innocent. He even tried to explain why his DNA was found on the gum and letter seal. He said that he used to run a laundry service and that he sometimes kept gum in the cabinet where Nova's body was found. Nova had used the gum at some point, long before he died, to hold the broken closet lock in place. He said that he had seen the letter when he was being questioned about the killings back in 1981. Osmond remembered that he was left alone in a room with a letter and envelope on the table for a few minutes. He remembered thinking at that time that someone might be watching him. After he looked at the letter, read what it said, and put it back on the table, the detectives came back into the room. Even though Osmond kept saying he had nothing to do with Nova's death, the case went to trial in the end. After a 6-week trial, he was found not guilty of murder because there was no proof that the crime was planned. Still, he was found guilty of manslaughter and sent to jail for 12 years. On March 22, 2017, the judge's decision was announced. The people in Nova's family were happy with how the hearing turned out. After 36 hard years, Nova can finally go to sleep now. Now that Nova's killer has been caught, the family may be able to feel better. Lorna Nova's mother told Osmond that the family had forgiven him for what he had done after hearing from Nova's sister Valerie. Valerie expressed that they forgive him, but emphasized that he still has to face the consequences of his actions. Laura Nova's best friend was glad that the person who killed her had been found and punished. The person who spoke said that they were still sad about Nova and hoped that her family had found peace. It was agreed that Nova could finally rest easy now that justice had been done. The person who spoke swore to never forget Nova until they met again. Lorna told Nova how much she cared about her as a friend. The sad part about Nova's situation is that she never got to see her kids grow up. But even though it took a long time, it is good that her killer has finally been found. But why? When all the proof pointed to Osmond as the murderer, did he still refuse to take responsibility for what he did? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section. Do not forget to like, write, subscribe, and share.